Hello, welcome to the Lone Show. I'm your host, John May Lone. In this episode, no regulars, because reasons as always. As for our guest, she's from somewhere in Alabama. She is a full-time author. She also has knowledge on music, as well as writing, and many more. But we'll certainly get into that. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Beth Pelino Dudzic.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks. So, how's life?
Pretty good, pretty busy. I have my normal house duties that I take care of, and then I'm an exercise phobe. Then I have various appointments, and I find that writing for me is best in the late afternoon, evening time. It's much freer for my head,
Fair enough.
I enjoy doing it in the evening. There's a peacefulness to it.
So true. Is there anything else you're working on or up to recently?
Well, I am working on the book. Was supposed to be one book, and my editor said it was two books. And when she finished the first draft of her reading my second book, she said to me, "I want you to continue the story." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I can do that." And I'm glad she did that, because now this story is so much more complex in books 3 and 4, which are already written. Book 5 has been written because it's so long that I have to take part of it to put into book 6. So you could say book 6 is 1/3 done. And what I'm doing with books 3 and 4, I've already finished it with book 3, because after you do your first two books, you're a novice, you don't understand anything. And now I understand what the editor is looking for, and she doesn't really change my books, which is the most phenomenal thing. She'll, make a couple of, "You said this," or "Let's take this out," and it's only a line. So she actually has always believed in my books the way they were written. However, I am doing what I call a self-edit. I started reading the manuscript for book 3 and 4, and I put in the chapter breaks. I named the chapters. I don't know if many people know this, but there is a standard formatting of any book that you see. And so you need to adhere to that. And I have learned what those things are. So book 3 is, like I said, ready to go to the editor. Book 4 is almost done with my self-editing. So that's what I've been working on. I do actually have 3 other stories, and they kind of jump out into my head. And I tell them, "I'm not ready for you to come out yet, so don't come out yet." I can be writing for the next 10 years, and I would be happy with that.
Nice. What inspired you to be an author?
Well, honestly, the stories were in my head for like 20 some odd years. I think because, and it's what my series is about, is a rock band and making it, that when I was exposed to that lifestyle, I thought, gee, I would like to do that. And you're younger, and at that specific moment in time, to be a female who was out there singing lead, they were very girly songs. I never wanted to do that. I always wanted to sing the songs that the guys wanted. And I let self-doubt come into my head. I also never thought I was pretty enough, which all my friends from back in the day told me that I was crazy, which is nice to hear now. But when I was going through all that, I would have elevated my standards in the dating pool if I knew that. But at any rate, so I didn't sing, which was something I feel badly about now. And then I was going to college, and I told my parents, "Gee, I think I'm going to go to school for acting, or, switch up what I was doing." And they were like, "No, you're not. You can't get a job that way." So I always thought I was supposed to do something, and whether you want to call it entertainment, celebrity, whatever it is that you want to label it, I always felt that that was my calling. However, I didn't do it. And so I took what many of my band associate friends would call it, you sell out. And selling out means you just take a straight path, which I did. And I got a great job at a Fortune 500 company, and it was wonderful. Then I married somebody I shouldn't have married, and lived in Hawaii for some time. But my 3 daughters were born there, and I moved them back to New York. And I was raising 3 children. The story was still in my head. It was like little black and white kind of episodes that played in my head. And none of the characters had names, none of the characters, nothing. And it took till about a year and a half ago. And I kept saying to myself, I should write this story. I should write this story. I should write this story. And we put things off. And one day, and this is the God's truth, I was cleaning my house, and that story started coming to me very quickly in color and names. And it just was like, wait a second, this is now vibrant. And I went into the shower, I turned it on, and the story literally flowed out of me as I was in the shower. I got dressed, I found my old laptop, and I started writing the story. And I haven't stopped writing it since. I did get a new laptop, and that's what inspired me. The inspiration is putting your dreams on hold for a very long time, knowing that you were supposed to do something creative, something that the world gets to see, or however you want to label that. And just saying, at some point in your life, I don't have the impediments I used to have, and I can write it now. And it's a wonderful feeling, maybe, 20 some odd years after the fact, but I think it is now a better quality than it would have been if I decided to write it, over 20 years ago.
Wow. So true.
It's
Go
No,
on.
go ahead.
I was going to ask you a question.
Sure.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
There's 2 places that I would live, and one is where I was born and raised, and I love it. It's the best city in the world, and when you are a native New Yorker, as I am, there is no other city in the world that's like New York, and I am proud to be someone, because we have a way about us that is very unique. We are actually nice people, but if you confront us, we will come after you. That's for sure. And the other city and I'm going to name some secondaries. The other city that I feel when I go there is like New York in so many aspects is London. I love London. I think it's very similar to New York. Now, if I took those 2 off the table, there would be 2 other cities, one city here in the US and one city in Europe. And the city in the US would be Portland, Oregon, because some reason 2 of my daughters decided to move there. And now I don't. I'm too young to actually be one, but I am a GG. And I have the most adorable granddaughter. So Portland would definitely be someplace I would want to be, because of family, and my daughters are my world, so being close to them again, proximity wise, is important. And another city that I would pick in Europe would probably be Amsterdam.
Nice.
Yeah. I've been to all those places, so I'm not speaking out of left field here. There's something that's intriguing about each of those cities. New York for me is home. New York City is home. So for me, that's just a natural. And I know other people, if you're not from there and you didn't grow up there, you don't understand your New York uniqueness until you live someplace else. And then you're like, okay, you know, the New York embodiment is in your DNA.
Yes, exactly.
So I appreciate it. I do go back to New York because I do have one daughter who is still there. So I get to go to Portland, I get to go to New York, and so I'm very happy about that. I get to do the things that I like to do, which is spending time with my daughters who are, they're grown. So it's not like they're grown women doing their things, but I'm still their mom. So I take it very seriously. Anything else you want to know about writing? I mean, I think the one thing people should know is I self-published my books. And there's a lot of misconceptions about it. And there's a lot of people who rip you off in that industry. And yeah, a lot of people just think you can, and you can actually do this, upload a manuscript onto Amazon. You can do that. But you do need a cover design. You do need to have a copyright page. You do need to have an ISBN number. And unless you know those things, and Amazon will reject your book and say, get these things. And you need to have a cover design. And, so people have asked me, why have you spent so much money on this? And it's because I have an A team of people who I work with because we all work together. It's not like I'm their boss. Sometimes they school me and I'm like, okay. And then there's a lot of bad self-publishing companies. So when I was searching around to find somebody, to look at my original manuscript, I did find 2 or 3 bad actors, bad companies, and all they want is your money, and they give you some package deal, and they'll say they'll do all this for you. And yeah, they might get your book formatted in some kind of janky kind of cover, but they don't market it, and they don't do everything that somebody who's been doing it for a long time in the business, making sure that everything is professional. And I came across 2 or 3 of them, and the big hint, 2 big hints. If they call you every day and are trying to sell you a package, run. The other thing I would say is if they do not have a website, run. There is a site called the Alliance of Self-Publishers. And when I looked at it about, let's say 2 years ago, because my first book is coming up on a year, so maybe it's a little less. But when I was looking for people, I went on that site, and at that time, there were only 7 people that had a green light. There were people who were yellow, and there were a ton that were red lights, meaning don't stay away. And I interviewed every one of those 7 people, and I finally found the right person for me. And it's really a collective where I interviewed editors. I found my editor, my book cover designer. She's a great artist, my marketing person. And so 3 of those ladies have worked together before, so it was just a very natural thing for them to work on my books, which they are loving because it is a series. I don't know, people in the publishing world love it when you have a series. So yeah, I always say, okay, let's get the band together. We're going to do book 3. And it's been rewarding. Would I like the book to be moving along faster? Absolutely. And I will say you spend a lot, not only do you spend a lot of money getting the book out the door, but it's the constant marketing that you have to do. Because when you're a first-time author, nobody knows you. So you are the face of the books for right now. And then when the books take off, they become their own entity. And right now, for me, I am actually living the characters. Their characters are in my head all the time as to what's going to be the next thing that happens. Or I do have a Spotify playlist, which I play when I work out. And there are some songs that have a lot of deep meaning. And I will cry to them because I the main female character is, I say she is me and I am her, but she has a lot of my attributes. So some of the things that have happened to her in the story actually are things that happened to me or were said to me. So she's not me, but she has a lot of me, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a very symbiotic relationship. So I kind of live through her and she lives through me, and it's especially funny when I'm writing in the evening because I just go into complete character mode. So if somebody is calling me, I'm like, oh yeah, you're talking to me. Okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, and the story it is a romance series, but it is also about the rock world and things that you go through when you're trying to start out to be that famous band, or playing in the nasty clubs, and what happens to you when you do make it. And that's a whole nother level. And so I keep adding level upon level upon level. And what happens to your relationships with the person you love or family members. And so it's a story that builds on each other, and other people's storylines come more into focus. And that was done purposefully so that it wasn't just the two main characters and their story. I had to have other stories for the other people in the books. And I think it makes for a better read. I also think, and I bounced some ideas against my mother, who decided to move down in Alabama when I moved here. Yay me. And I'll bounce ideas and she'll be like, why are you doing that? Oh my, that's terrible. And I said, it can't always be wines and roses. You have to have the lows in the story. And some of the lows are pretty deep, but that makes for a better read.
Absolutely. Is there any point that you may take this inspiration that you told me that you could use into your next few books that you may potentially write?
The only thing, and this is the only hint that I'm giving, because my one next story is going to take place between New York and London, and my third story, which most definitely will be a series, is a very convoluted story, and I don't want to give any of that up. And the fourth one will probably be a series, but that's going to be a historical fiction story that I've had in my head for a really long time. The one thing and as I was thinking about the other stories, the one thing that is, and it wasn't done originally planned, but the lead female character in every one of these different stories, not Perfection Saga, but the next one and the other two that come after that, is that the female character is strong and she comes from a wealthy background. In all of the books, that's going to be the female's MO. To prove the point that just because you have all the money in the world does not mean that ensures you the happy life. You might be able to pay your bills and buy some really nice clothes and stuff, but it doesn't buy all the things that are truly meaningful to you. And that is the one thing that I noticed, a few months ago when I was thinking about, what I say is the stories come off the shelf and they're like, is it my turn? I'm like, nope, not your turn yet. And then I think about that story and I'm like, huh. So the female character in this story is this and this and this. And I noticed that was a thread that ran through all the stories that I will write. And that would be about the only thing that I could admit would be the inspiration of the other stories. Yeah. Because I think people are under the misconception that, if you have a lot of money and, you have a great job or whatever, that your life is rosy. And I lived a life that, I had a lot of things, and, my kids went to the best private school and all of it. And it doesn't mean you're happy. It really doesn't. So it's a shock to other people who look at your life and say, what are you doing? Everything's wonderful. And it's like, you're not living my life. You don't know. So yeah, I think that's a part of the story that I always want to make clear, is that they are these women from means, but they have other areas in their life that they're very much not happy with.
Absolutely.
And it
Where
is
I was going to ask you, where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
okay. Where do I see myself? Well, I'm going to state a couple of things here. In every one of my books, since they're a rock band, I wrote songs. I wrote lyrics for songs. Because that's what the female character in the band, yes, she does sing, but her job is mostly, and everybody adds to it, she is a lyricist. She writes the lyrics for the songs, and the rest of the band helps her, refines it. So I wrote songs for every one of my books. I cannot write music, so I have put out in a TikTok reel a good 6 months ago, calling out some bands, saying, hey, I'd like to work with you guys and doing some music. So if I take the book and they become popular, then I have these songs, and I have about 16 of them. And if I grow it from that point, I believe that my series is better than most things that you see on a streaming network, because my story is true to the Italian American New York way of life. It's true to the club scene that happens. It's true, what you have to do to become famous and what happens. So there's a lot that goes on. It could never be made a movie. It would have to be a limited series. And I think that my story would be perfect for that. So not only do I have my songs, I have my books, which I believe could be a really great show on some streaming network. So that might take a little bit. The books will probably be all done being published by 2026. So, doing a TV show, doing all that stuff takes a little bit of time. But I did tell my editor when we finished to edit book 2, and I said, okay, book 3 is almost done. And she said, this story is good enough to be made into a show. And I said, well, if anybody asks, you and I are going to write the screenplay, because I do not want, and I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you've seen it happen, where a book is taken and made into a movie, a series, whatever, and they change it. They change the characters, they change how things play out. And because I own everything with my books, I own it. There's no publishing company get in the middle. There's nobody but me. And so I would not give that up, and I would not give up writing a screenplay to someone who wants to make some kind of statement of any kind. My characters are diverse without me even going through this whole diversity thing. Like I said, the story was in my head for over 20 years, and some of the things that are out now didn't exist. So my characters were probably before their time, because that's the way I saw them originally. And yeah, I have seen too many books made into movies or series, and they botch it. They ruin it by changing one thing, and that one thing makes a difference. And yeah, so I won't have that happen. I'll write the screenplay with my editor. I mean, so let's say that takes 10 years. The other 10 years will be me getting out the other books.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And why not? Who knows? They could be, I think that each one of the other stories has a lot going for it. The next book probably could be a movie, but definitely the third one would have to be a series because it is an intricate story. And that's all I did. I will say this, that the third book I have in mind, I got inspiration, and this is all it takes for me to get inspiration. I was working out and Electric Light Orchestra's Evil Woman came on, and my head just went like bing, and the story came into my head immediately, like, oh, I'm gonna write, this is the way this story is gonna go. And you never know where you're gonna get the inspiration from, so you always keep your eyes open because it can come from the silliest little thing, and that silly little thing can grow into something really important. I also am a big believer in manifesting your own dream, your what you'd like to see happen, all of that, because we put out there into the universe what we want, and you'd be surprised about what comes back to you. I believe, in just positivity, and if people around me start to be, and I do have one person who is the most negative person in the world, but I have to take it from her because it's my mom, and it's like, okay. And sometimes she says things and I'm like, don't put that out in the universe. Don't say it. Because once you say something out loud, you can't take that back. So yeah, I do believe we manifest the things that we want if you believe that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is all we have for this episode. It's great having you on, Beth, talking about your works as an author, talking about your family and being an inspiration for your writing. And at one point you mentioned you were a musician. Everything else is being fabulous.
Yes, well, it could get even more fabulous if the books skyrocket. That would make things a lot better.
Absolutely. And until next time, stay tuned for more.